Gary Nickerson.
And I'm Quinn Taggart.
And this is Outside My Window.
Angelique LeBlanc has been the Chief Executive Officer of the Western Regional Enterprise Network, otherwise known as WREN, since August of 2014. Angelique's economic and business development experience in Nova Scotia have equipped her with an acute understanding of the challenges faced by local business communities. She's built a solid network of regional and provincial contacts and has worked with all levels of government in the process. Building on her MBA from the Université de Moncton, Angelique has also spent 6 years teaching abroad and acquired a global perspective, along with the ability to thrive in challenging circumstances. And certainly, Angelique, welcome to the podcast. It has been challenging in the last 2 years, has it not?
It certainly has, Quinn, and thanks very much for that introduction.
What has COVID really done to the overall mission of WREN over the last couple of years? Let's get that one out of the way, and then we can talk about the other stuff.
Yeah, I think that now more than ever, role in supporting businesses across the region has really been key. As the pandemic hit, we were able to kind of activate our network and reach out to partners in the region to really proactively pick up the phone, reach out to the business community, and make sure that they were receiving all the information that was pumping out from all levels of government, receiving all that information in real time. So making sure that everybody was aware, everybody had access, and just being there to support as was required. So yeah, we had that network to do so early on.
And that's great. And just taking a step back for a second, why don't you give us a little bit of a background of what the Regional Enterprise Network is all about and how it operates here in southwestern Nova Scotia?
So we are an economic and business development network, and our territory, our region, is from Barrington to B. So we work frontline with businesses in our region, and we help support them and to help them grow. And we also work on some broader economic development issues for the region, mainly to make the area even more business friendly and open to new businesses as well.
Excellent. And so, from a mission statement point of view, what's the WREN's mission?
Yeah, the mission is to really support and accelerate economic growth in the region. So, in a nutshell, we're looking at supporting that business community, helping businesses grow, and increase the tax base in our region so we can get more supports and more services in the region.
What major projects does the WREN have on the go right now? Now, I know you've been working on the internet for a number of years, but what else do you have on the go?
Yeah, we run a number of programs that through our Business Now flag. So our Business Now program is our umbrella program for our frontline business services. So we have right now we have a continuous improvement program that we've been running for a number of years. And what that program does is it enables businesses to have a look at processes within the company and identify waste. So it can be waste in all kinds of forms. So it can be, actual waste materials from production. It can be a waste in, deploying your human resources, a variety of things. Lots of times it's related to time. So it's identifying efficiencies and being able to eliminate some of that waste. So that program we've been running, like I say, for a number of years, and that's been a great program for businesses to just take a look at their operations and seeing how to streamline a little bit. And it's always been important, but now more than ever in COVID times. And we run another program, a succession program, and that is recognizing the fact that in our region and across Canada, because of our demographics, there are a number of business owners who are looking to sell the business. So we have a program that is catered to supporting businesses who are looking at an exit plan, and we really support them at all stages. So right from the beginning of where do I even start, straight up to if you have interested buyers. So those are examples of some of the programs that we run. We have another very successful program called the Connector Program, and that one is for newcomers to the region or boomerangers. So we're seeing more of those people who are from the region but moved away for a number of years and are now moved back. Again, because of COVID, we're seeing a lot of that happening. Or for recent graduates. So it's to help them build a network in the region. So it really is true to its name, a connector program. So building your network, which we know is really important in a rural community, to have those inroads and those connections, and then kind of build your network with the ultimate goal to find a job and stay in the region. So a lot of the programming that we do is about retaining the population that we have here, as well as increasing it in some cases, it's an increasing focus for us, is population growth.
And what's the outlook for 2022 and beyond? What's on the slate for this year?
We're shifting into some green energy planning for the region. You mentioned internet. We have been focusing on that for a number of years. A lot of projects when it comes to economic development and improving the business environment, it's a long game. They're not quick fixes necessarily. So the internet we're going to continue to support until that project is complete, and then we are turning our efforts to some energy planning work in the region. So we're looking at actually well beyond 2022 and making sure that we have the energy that we need in our region, and that being a good chunk of it is being produced locally as well. So you'll see some work that's going to come out in the next year or so. It's going to be focused on the energy piece. So that's an exciting one for us. And we're also focusing, as I said, on immigration. So we have local immigration partnership going to have a number of projects spin off from the program as well.
We would like to introduce you to Brenda LaGrandeur. Since March of 2021, she has taken on the role of the Local Immigration Partnership Coordinator with the Western Regional Enterprise Network, or WREN. Brenda originally joined the team at the Western WREN in 2017 as the Connector Program Manager, and in 2019 oversaw the WREN's first succession program. Brenda brings her proven abilities in project management and community and stakeholder engagement to the Western WREN Connector Program. Her experience includes 8 years of community development with the municipality of Argyll, and 2 years as Communications and Professional Development Officer with the Provincial Association of Economic Development Organizations in Ontario. Brenda is a proud Acadian and applies her networking and organizational strengths to creating robust regional programs. Brenda, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. That's quite an intro.
Well, what does it mean, though? What at the end of the day, what is a local immigration partnership coordinator do?
Well, my role is, I guess I should say that local immigration partnerships, LIPs, are found across Canada. So we're probably the 80th or 80 plus LIP across Canada. And what we all do is bring together the partners in our specific catchment area to be able to work together and collaborate to ensure that our region is as welcoming as possible to immigrants. So making it a place that people want to come to, have an easy time to settle into, and then stay.
How are we doing on that?
We're doing good. We've only just started. So I started in that role in March of 2021. And we are at the stage of submitting a 3-year strategic plan to IRCC, which will include a lot of initiatives that not only the Western WREN, but many, many of our partners across the province will help work with us on in order to accomplish the goals we have.
Brenda, how important is immigration to Nova Scotia? Why do we need immigrants?
We need immigrants for a lot of different reasons. I guess the one that comes to mind mostly, especially in our rural regions, is for employment. We are going through a labor shortage, and we need skilled people coming into our communities to help take over some of those jobs. We are also seeing a decline in overall population in the province. So that means lower enrollment in schools, of course, less people buying houses, just generally making the economy go round.
Now, we had a chat with Rebecca Rose Cassidy about the Connector program for doctor recruitment. So is that a target audience for your program as well, or is your program more broad?
Our program is a lot broader, but Rebecca Rose actually sits on our what is called the Partnership Council. So we involve about 20 different organizations in the region, including the Chamber of Commerce, of which Rebecca is part of, so that the initiatives that we create on a broad level will impact and help with her work with doctors and other healthcare professionals, as well as any other newcomer that arrives in the region.
In your role as immigration coordinator and the program itself, how far do you go in? Obviously, you're trying to attract immigrants to Nova Scotia, to Western Nova Scotia. But how far does that go as far as their integration into, a different society than they're used to? What role do you have there?
Well, the role of the LIP is not to recruit. That's left up to the employers that are offering the job. Of course, there are some refugees that come here that are sponsored by community groups, so they aren't recruited, of course. But the role of the LIP is mostly to support them once they arrive here. It's also to support employers, the community as a whole, to help them be more welcoming and understand the benefits of immigration, and also to ensure that immigrants understand what resources we have in the region and how to get a hold of them.
Are we targeting, specific countries for immigration, or is it, again, a little bit more of a broad scope?
It is a little bit of a more broad scope. And like I said, the immigrants that come here are mostly coming here for work. So the skill sets that some of our employers are looking for, they potentially are targeting specific regions of the world or are relying on their current employees who have connections back in their home countries. There are also many international students that are coming into our region, both at University of Sainte Anne and Church Point, as well as an increased number of students that are coming to study at our NSCC campuses.
Now, from an immigration standpoint, are skills transportable? Are they easily transportable from one country to another? Or, do you hit roadblocks on certifications and the like? I'll harken back to the conversation we had with Rebecca Rose, and that, doctors it's a little bit challenging to get them certified to work in Canada. But how is it on other skill sets?
It's probably about the same. I don't pretend to understand exactly the process that a doctor has to go through, especially a specialist that goes beyond just general practice. But I know everything from recognition of high school diploma to specialized training. The credential assessment piece is something that is both expensive, time consuming, and it is probably one of the biggest reasons for some of the holdups that happen. Even once an employer finds the right candidate, it's going through that process to get them here.
That's got to be frustrating.
Yeah, it is. It's something that's been flagged in our LIP strategy as something that we have to better understand in order to be able to help employers with that process.
Brenda, do you think most Nova Scotians understand the importance and the need for immigration?
That's a really tough question. I guess I'm going to say not all. I don't know if I would say most. I guess I consider most to be 50%. I do believe that there is still a segment of the population that doesn't have a clear understanding of why we even need more people to come to this province. And I'm happy to say, though, that it's becoming more and more mainstay, both here in rural Nova Scotia as it is across Canada. We have, a very already multicultural communities. I mean, you can tell it by the grocery stores. You can tell it by, who you're talking to when you're walking down the street. So I think just by having new people in our community and the work that we'll be doing to try to, dispel any myths that are misunderstood about why immigrants are here and the benefits that they bring, I hope that next time, if we talk again, that most will be a strong, resounding yes.
So let's explore that one a little bit further. If there was something specific that you would want people to understand that you think that maybe they don't understand, what would it be?
I think maybe the very first thing is the fact that when immigrants are offered jobs here in Nova Scotia, employers have to have exhausted all of the options to hiring a Canadian before they're even eligible to offer a job to somebody from another country. So these jobs are either that we don't have the skill set available to come here, move here, and take that job, or we just simply don't have enough people to go around. We need more people to take those jobs. I think people often think that immigrants will come here for lower skilled positions, and it's just not the case. I mean, doctors, nurses are a great example. Those are highly skilled positions. We just don't have enough Canadians to fill those roles.
So let's skip out of this for a second. We certainly can talk for an hour just on immigration alone, but we really wanted to chat with you a little bit about a contest that you guys did almost a year ago called the Win This Space competition. How did this come about, and give us some background on how this all came in?
Sure. I got an email one day from Natalie Smith, who's the Economic Development Officer for the town of Yarmouth. And she was getting together with a representative from the local CBDC and Ignite Labs. And they were brainstorming an idea for Yarmouth only for what they were calling a retail pop-up event. And it was to encourage new retail opportunities in the downtown. So we're a regional enterprise network, which means that we work on projects for the entire region. But this idea kind of piqued our interest because we actually had some funds earmarked in our budget for an entrepreneurial, I'm going to call it, event. We hadn't really fleshed out what that was going to look like. And I went to this meeting to kind of hear what they were thinking about and realized that they were talking about a project that I kind of knew a lot about. When I worked in Ontario, I was in charge of communications and professional development for a provincial organization. And part of my role was to plan help plan an annual conference that included awards. And one of the awards that was given that year was to a CBDC, a CFDC, they're called in Ontario, who had come up with this idea for a Win This Space contest to open up a new business in a particular hard-hit small community. So I was so intrigued by it. When I was moving back to Nova Scotia, I reached out to the lady who had created it, and she shared everything with me about how to run this, right down from budget to logo.
Wow.
So it was unbelievable. So we talked about this internally and decided that we would pitch the idea back to these three ladies who had invited us to that meeting, that if we could potentially expand it to include the entire region, which is Digby County, Yarmouth County, and the municipality of Barrington, that we would have been more than willing to share all that information and collaborate with them in both the delivery of it as well as part of the prize package as well.
And it was a huge success.
It was pretty exciting. It was a lot of fun too. We put out a call right away for kind of a really short and sweet expression of interest. People could either send us a very short video giving us their idea for what type of business they'd want to start, or they could write a short essay. I think it was 250 words. And I think we got something like 23 applications from that initial call, which was, I was over the moon happy with that number. From there, we had, short little interviews with all of these people. And as different as the businesses were and where they were coming from, there was a lot of innovative and excitement about what they could do in this region, which was great to hear.
So out of all the entries, and again, you're running this in the midst of a pandemic, right?
Yes.
So
we are.
It must have been a lot of Zoom meetings, but certainly that had to have been a bit of a challenge in itself.
It was. Even we had a training component. One of the big, I guess what makes this different is that these business owners weren't just or these potential business owners weren't just, hey, here's the space, open it up. To be able to even get down to the top 10, top 5, they had to take part in 3 pretty intensive business training sessions, so that by the time if they opened the door, that they had not just an idea, but a how can I do this? So all of that training had to be done virtually. And I don't know about you, but I know that I learn best face to face. So, it was a challenge, but everybody hung on, and maybe it's not like today, and maybe people aren't zoomed right out, but people had we had a lot of success then and a lot of collaboration.
I am zoomed out, to be honest.
Yeah, we are all zoomed out.
I do miss the face-to-face conversations considerably, and with my job, I did have the ability to travel a little bit, which was really nice, and be able to meet some of the clients that I work with my day job face-to-face, and it's not the same. It's not.
No.
You're seeing them on a camera, but it really isn't the same as being in the same room with them and being able to enjoy the atmosphere that goes with it.
I think I miss the most the body language piece. Like, when you're just looking at someone's head, you're missing all of the rest of that. And that was a challenge for this contest too, because the initial contest that I told you about that happened in Ontario, the pitch competition happened in person and happened at a large event. Like they had it at a golf course, and the public was invited. So there are the nerves associated with standing in front of a crowd and pitching an idea that you're passionate about. So they were pitching by themselves on Facebook Live to 3 judges who we did get together, socially distanced, to watch the pitches. But, it did leave, it did lose, I guess, a bit of that personal connection.
So over the course of the contest, you went from 23, you said initially down to what, a top 10, then a top 5, or how did it go?
We went from the 23 initial, and then they were assessed to see how many, actually responded with all the information that we needed for them to move forward. And then, like I said, they had to. So I think we went down, let's say, to 20. I can get you the correct numbers, but it's really close to that. How many those people then were invited to participate in the training, and it was mandatory. So if they didn't complete all of the training sessions, they couldn't go forward with the competition.
Makes sense.
So then we went down to, I think we were down to 12. So we did have some people who didn't complete it all for different reasons. We also had a couple of people who took the training and said, you know what, I still have some work to do on this idea. I'm glad I've done this. I'm glad I've gotten this far. I've made some contacts, but I have to step back. I'm not ready. And to be honest, that's a great thing as well.
Yeah.
So then we had it down to the top 10. And part of their training was they had to create a full business plan. And those business plans went to our judges. And business plans, if you've ever read one, are they're not a 2-pager.
No.
Some of these were some pretty substantial. I did the printing and the distributing to our judges, and they were some pretty hefty packages. So the judges then had a score sheet that they were assessing various items that they were looking for in those business plans. And our judges were people that had extensive personal business experience themselves. And from there, we went to the top 5. And the top 5 were offered training to help them perfect their pitches. And then they were the top 5 who actually pitched to the judges.
And then who won?
The winner was Jenny Wilcockson. She is from England originally. Yay, another immigrant. And she opened London Calling British Boutique in Yarmouth. One of the aspects of this competition, I guess I should have touched on, was the fact that it was really important to us that we involve the business community in this process. So we went out on almost a separate campaign to reach out to landlords, commercial landlords who had space throughout the region. So we were interested in making sure that their spaces were promoted as almost as much as these new business ideas were, because potentially there could be other businesses or other business owners that were looking to expand, or even another business that wasn't in the competition that might have set out shop in some of these places, which did happen. So Jenny chose her spot that she won, and she opened up her shop in April of last year on Main Street in Yarmouth.
Again, in the midst of a pandemic.
She sure did. I think between lockdowns, to be honest.
Yeah. She saw an opening and took it.
She did. Well, we part of what we were asking all the competitors was to tell us in that business plan. We called it how they COVID-proofed their business.
Sure.
Knowing that was a reality. And in consideration of that as well, we knew that an online presence was really important for the winner. So we had actually a first prize and a second prize, but both of those winners actually also were given for Jenny, a complete website build, including an e-commerce. So depending on the type of business, for Jenny, it was her customers to be able to order her products and have them shipped. Our second prize winner was a restaurant. So for them, it was important to have an area where people could make reservations.
Sure.
Yeah.
But really, when you look at it, everybody that had an opportunity to take the training really is we're a winner. In order to be able to receive that kind of professional development is quite a challenge.
It is. I mean, they did some hard work, but they also got some excellent resources. The trainers, even though it was virtual, were there for after-hours conversations. I know a few of them reviewed the entire business plan packages before they were submitted to the judges. So getting that training for all of the participants, like you say, was a really important part of the project.
Are you looking to do it again?
It's something that we've talked about, and we've talked to our partners. Again, it's one of those, we are still in that pandemic and probably in the worst of it right now. We don't have plans to do it in this fiscal, and everything, in budget land comes to each fiscal. But we're very, very, very open to working with any partner in the entire region to collaborate on delivering, whether we do a section of it and another partner takes on another. But we're open to talking to anybody about doing something like this again.
And if you were to do it again, would you change anything?
Yes. I think we've learned a lot. It was our first time, and we did have all of the information from Southern Ontario, and they were rural, they were small, and we followed a lot of the same steps. But they all were, they were trying to find retail locations for a downtown. And when our contest went out as a regional contest, we opened it up to any type of business, which meant that the training was a little different for, the type of training maybe that was delivered would have been different if it was a more focused type of business. We learned a lot about the timing of when the contest ends to when the business opens, and maybe even some additional supports that those business owners needed that we hadn't thought of.
Well, at least you got some takeaways.
We got a lot of takeaways. Yeah. I don't think there's very many projects that you can undertake and really dig into that you can say at the end of it, no, it went perfect, didn't learn a thing, would do it exactly the same way. I haven't had
They
any
would
of
be
those
fibbing.
anyway.
They would be fibbing,
I
I
think
think.
I think so too.
If they were to make that kind of assertion.
Yeah.
Brenda, we really appreciate it. We're gonna skip out and we're gonna talk to Jenny and get her feeling on the process and how she has been faring over this last year. Are you looking to do some sort of a release on the 1 year, like a wrap up of some sort?
We are. One of the other things I guess I should say is that I think it's 5 now of the people that applied and participated in the contest have opened their businesses. So we'd like to do a check-in with those 5 businesses. And I mean, one of them is one that didn't even make it to the top 5 pitching.
Wow.
So to do something just to see 1 year later, and we've done that with Jenny. We've touched base with her in the past little bit here just to see how it's going. And of course, we go in and enjoy some of her wonderful things.
Well, you have to.
But yeah, you do have to. And I just actually had lunch at the restaurant that was the second place prize. So we're keeping in touch with them and finding out as much as we can, and hope to share that as well.
It's certainly on my list of things to do, to go down for tea.
great. It's a fun time.
Brenda, it must bring you and everyone involved in these programs, whether it's the immigration program, the connector, the succession program, a great deal of personal satisfaction. You must have a great compassion for what you do because, you know, it involves people. Can you talk about that?
I can't tell you how much, I don't know, I guess the only word that comes to mind is gratitude. I am so lucky to have been working most of my adult career working on projects that really make a difference in a place that I really love. I grew up here. It matters to me what happens. I have a daughter and a little grandson coming. So for me, being able to make this place better for the people that are living here and for new people who want to come and settle here is the most gratifying thing I can think of.
Jenny Wilcockson, originally from the UK and just celebrated her 10-year anniversary of moving to Canada. She and her husband moved to Yarmouth from Hamilton, Ontario 2 years ago, just before the pandemic. She never intended to start a business, but COVID affected their work, and they had a little idea that turned into a little business from home. Then someone told her about Win This Space competition, and here we are. Welcome, Jenny.
Hi.
Let's take a step back. Tell us what brought you to Canada originally.
I came here with a previous partner, and it was his dream to come and see Canada. And we came like on a bit of a work permit where you do work for free in order for a place to stay. You know, we lived in a backpackers hostel. um, we only
Well,
intended
that's
to
an
stay for
adventure.
like, yeah, it was. We only intended to stay for about 3 months originally, and then I liked it. And I went into a FedEx one day, and they offered me a job because I used to work for FedEx in England. So
Nice.
yeah, I ended up doing a work permit then for a year and then another year, by which time I was single again, but I met my now husband, who's Canadian.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
And so then what brought you to Yarmouth?
Well, he's from Hamilton, Ontario, my husband is. So we lived there for about 8 years, and we had 2 kids. You know, we got married, we bought a house, had 2 kids. And it's very expensive to live there and stressful. And it's just difficult to kind of stay afloat financially. The more expensive things got, it just it felt like we were both working constantly full time as hard as we could just to pay everything. We never had any spare. We never, had extra to treat the kids or anything. And so we started to look for somewhere else in the country that we could move to where it wouldn't be as expensive and where we could perhaps take the value out of our house and buy one. And we ended up with Nova Scotia. But in terms of choosing like an area to live in, we really didn't want to go for another city. We wanted somewhere smaller, but somewhere that still had all the shops and the amenities and opportunities, that the kids wouldn't be horribly bored and not have a choice of places to kind of do different clubs or go to school. So that's how we chose Yarmouth.
Wow. Throwing darts at a dartboard.
Yeah, basically, we watched a lot of YouTube videos of people driving around towns in Nova Scotia.
Well, that's a great selling point. Apparently, we're going to have to capitalize on that part.
Yeah, we should. So there's really not very many, or there wasn't 2 years ago. There wasn't many of those videos.
So, give us an idea what your business is and what it does, and give you an opportunity to kind of plug how that idea kind of came about.
Okay, well, in Ontario, where we lived before, there's a lot of British shops, which is just basically like retail stores that have all the imported goodies, the foods and the drinks that people from Britain miss. And I was used to be able to shop at those whenever I wanted to because they were just everywhere in Hamilton. And then when we moved here, I realized that we were 300, Halifax is the nearest one. So especially because COVID then came along shortly after we moved, we couldn't go there. And I realized that there's only really 2 other places in this province that do sell a big selection of British products. Neither of them has delivery or shipping options. You can't order on the website. Like, there was literally no way for me to get that stuff anymore.
Wow.
So that's where it came from. It was my own need for stuff. And because I know people in Ontario that own British shops, and I've worked for a couple of them in the past on and off. So I ended up with a contact at a wholesaler who, he imports all the stuff, and said to him, how much would it be for you to send me a skid of things that I want? And he set me up an account. So that's how it began. But then other people on Facebook, I put a post out there saying, is there any other Brits that want me to add on stuff? And it grew from there, that we realized, there is a lot of other people. And especially when it got towards Christmas, there's all these types of products that you can't get here that people were really clamoring for. And we ended up with so much that we did a show at the fair. We went to the Rod and did the fair there for 2 days. And that's kind of what sparked the idea of, maybe this is big enough that we could have a little shop.
Is it mostly sweets, crisps, and drinks?
A lot of it, but there is groceries too. Yeah, so there's a lot of chips, there's chocolate, there's candy, cookies or biscuits as we would call them. There's drinks, so there's pop, and then there's cordial, which is kind of like a concentrated, you just put a little bit and top it up with water kind of thing. But I also have a section of baking supplies, dessert stuff, frozen groceries, and then there's a little groceries area, so things like canned vegetables, stuffing, all kinds of stuff, gravy mixes, soups, pickles. There's quite a lot of stuff.
And now I understand you're doing pastries and cooked items.
Yeah, so then that came later. So what we did is I came and looked at the space, because I'd seen on Main Street that it was here and it was close to home and it was empty. So, I got in touch with the owner and we had a little look at it. But we were hesitant to do anything because of COVID. We didn't want to be paying out rent every month or signing a lease, when there was the potential for us to be closed down because of COVID. So we kind of put it on hold with them and said, we'll come back to it next year when it's not COVID and see if it's still available. And it was actually the owner of the building at the time that said to me, well, what about this competition? Because they'd asked her to put the space in the Win This Space competition. So it was her kind of idea for me to enter the competition. And I kind of joked about it and said, yeah, sure, I'll enter it. And if I win, then we know that I'll choose your space. And then I did actually win, which is just funny. But it
so what was the process like? I don't mean to interrupt you, but so how did that work out? I mean, did you submit a written proposal and then do some in live or on Zoom?
Yeah, so basically they had an initial thing on their website that said you either needed to make a video or do a written submission of just briefly outline what the idea was and why you should be in the competition. So I had done that in the October, and then they picked however many they thought were viable, kind of good ideas. And we went through a process somewhat similar, I suppose, to like The Apprentice or something like that, where, you come up with, we did a lot of training sessions where you do online group sessions with mentors and people who have been in these industries for years and had successful businesses. And they basically taught us how to make a business plan, how to do projections for like what you would make in terms of revenue and expenses and budgeting. And then the end goal after all of that is to come up with a document, like a proper business plan, which was about 25 pages long. And that was what you submitted. Yeah, it was quite in depth. And then we submitted that around Christmas time. And then the judges, there's 3 judges, and they had a chance to kind of go over them, pick out the top 5. And those 5 people then had to go into the next round, which involved video pitching, like sales pitching, basically first it was a panel of entrepreneurs, and then they would give you feedback about what they think of your pitch, what they think of your idea, whether it's got any obvious problems with it. And then the last people to get through that process then did the live pitch, which was the end of the competition. So it was like a Facebook live pitch almost to the judges, but also like to the public, really.
So those training sessions that they put you through, were they helpful? Like, did you learn a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
from them?
very helpful. I mean, I had access to people that I would never probably have come across or had access to otherwise, without paying for it, or, paying for books or paying for podcasts or whatever. But it was very helpful because I was able to email those people outside of the sessions and send them things and say, well, what do you think of this? Or did I do this right? Or would you suggest that this is an appropriate estimate of what my costs would be? Or, are these profit projections ridiculous? Like, because I've never done this before. I've never been in business. I'd only lived in the town for a year, so I didn't really know what to expect in terms of the number of people that might walk through the door or spend money here.
So you turned a hunger for some local products into a successful business.
Yeah, basically. I mean, like the tea room part of it came throughout that process. Like it's not that I didn't already have the idea to do the tea room, but when I was doing the business plan, that's when I included that. And I kind of said, we'll open the retail store for 3 to 6 months. We'll see how it goes. We'll build up some revenue, some money to spend, because I didn't have anything prior to the competition in terms of like money to put into it. So then we would assess whether it was reasonable to put a few tables in and start slowly with, baking some scones, doing some tea. And that's basically what we did. So we didn't introduce that part of it really until August, September time last year. But it's been pretty popular so far.
So you opened up a new business and a new idea in a small town right in the middle of a pandemic. How'd that work out?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what happened is because when I won the competition, the WREN said, we want you to be open by April 1st. That was their deadline, that, that's when it starts. You'll open your shop then. So it was quite a rush to get everything ready inside the unit, to get all of my stock organized, bring it here, like figure out a way to put it all on display and put prices and do it cost effectively, because I couldn't afford to go out and buy, all of the usual kind of retail equipment. So it was a bit of a rush. And then I think we were open for like 5 weeks, and then we had to close for 2 months because of lockdown.
Wow.
Yeah. So immediately it was like, we had this great first initial period where there was more people that came in than I thought would. And it was lots of the people who were already buying from me on Facebook or on the website. And then they started to obviously come into the shop, and
Bring
lots
their
of
friends.
people, yeah, like lots of people came in specifically because we just opened, to say hi and be like, this is great. We're really behind you 100% kind of thing. So it was like really, really great. And then kind of really, really scary because we had to close for 2 months. And although we didn't have the issue of, oh God, how do we pay the rent? Because obviously that was covered by WREN for the year, but it was all the other expenses, and just the inventory it's perishable at the end of the day. So you have
Yeah.
to find other ways to sell it. Otherwise, if it's just going to sit here and go bad.
Did you ever feel like when COVID kind of pulled the rug out from under you that this is a really bad idea?
Oh yeah, we've had several moments like that and several arguments over the last year where it's like, why did we do this? What were we thinking? Why on earth did we get ourselves into this now? Because look at this now. We have got all this stock. We've got this whole shop now full of stuff that, what happens if we can't sell it? And we've had to come up with some inventive ways to push the products out to people, even if they're not coming out. And even now we're still doing that because it's winter time, it's Omicron. People aren't coming out and shopping right now because everybody's either scared of COVID, got COVID, doesn't want to brave the roads. Like, it's not a great time for retail.
So we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary of the contest. Now, what's the future look like for the London Calling British Boutique?
Well, I think if we can get through the next two months, then it's going to be good because the weather will improve. Hopefully the COVID situation will improve with more people getting vaccinated, and we are looking forward to the potential people from the ferry. If the ferry is going to start back up again, which we hear it is, then festivals in the summer and events. We're planning our own big event for June, so I'm very optimistic that once winter's done, then we'll be good.
That's great. That's great. So, From this contest itself, what were your takeaways? What were your main takeaways from the contest process that you've been able to capitalize on for the success of your business?
I think I learned that Facebook is a very powerful tool. That it's there, it's free. You don't have to spend money on advertising on Facebook to get sales, and you can definitely turn posts on Facebook into money in the bank. Like, that's something that surprises me still even now, but it definitely is very effective. I've learned a lot about like marketing and how to, instead of just writing a Facebook post, I paid for a program so that I can make something that looks attractive and use that to drive more sales and get people interested. So I definitely learned more about the marketing side of things. um I learned a lot about website development because, part of the prize was that I won a website, and that was made by Boostflow, and they did a really good job. And since that has now ended, kind of thing, I've gone back to using my original website that I had, because for me it's simpler, but I've learned a lot in the process of how to add in pages and sections and, be able to do that.
Looking ahead over the next little while, if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, you've managed to do this and you did a pretty good job at it," what advice would you give them?
I think that you've got to have confidence in yourself, because if you second guess and you sit there and you think about all the problems that could potentially come up, and what if this happens, and what if nobody comes into the shop, and like, you'll never do it. You're never going to know until you do it, because I still didn't have any clue whatsoever until I opened the door of the shop. Whether or not anybody was going to come in there, whether it was going to be financially feasible. Like, you can write down and plan, and that is obviously one very important part of it, to try and project your profits and your expenses and all the rest of it. But you do have to take a bit of a leap of faith, and it is worth it. And I think if you are willing to put in the work and the enthusiasm, that it'll pay off.
I'm Gary Nickerson,
And I'm Quinn Taggart.
and this has been Outside My Window.